All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have the bills and manifests going around. We're going to start off with a roll call. So starting with the board members, Keith McGuigan here. Shane Wells. Here. Bree Gunter.
Yes.
Amy Hanneman.
Here.
Brian Winslow.
Here.
And can we go around the table for everybody else? Just introduce yourself and say what your position is.
Jeff Brown, the curriculum director.
Jocelyn Young, principal.
Scott Roning, Assistant Superintendent.
Bob Gadomski, Superintendent.
Suzanne Beauchesne, Board Secretary.
Okay, thank you very much. On our agenda tonight, we have a couple conversations / meetings with our town administrator and the police chief. So I just want to let you know we're going to start with those two. And then we are going to need to go into a, hopefully a brief non-public session. So we're going to kick all you guys out, but please wait in the hallway and we'll bring you back in and then we'll go on to opening public comment from there. So that is the plan for this evening, so. All right, so to start off, we have Mrs. LaFawn here, the town administrator. Please bring up a chair if you want, or just stand at the microphone. Okay. Gary, you know Gary.
I don't have to stay for too long,
Yeah.
But I just wanted to come in and introduce myself. I'm Kay LaFawn, I'm the new town administrator, and I just wanted to hand out some business cards and tell you all that I look forward to working with you all as we move forward. Keith and I had spoke briefly when he came into the town hall not too long ago, and we discussed having semi-annual joint board meetings between the Board of Selectmen and the school board. So the selectmen are looking forward to continuing on with that and really opening up dialogue and lines of communication so that the two entities can be on the same page as we move forward with various things going on in town. So I won't take up any more of your time because I know that you have a lot of things to do. So I'll just hand out business
Sure.
cards. If you can just pass them around, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I did mention to Ms. LaFawn that there's a lot of overlap that we could potentially have with the school, especially in the rec department, I think. You know, we have a lot of things that we can share resources and share fields. I mean, I know we already do some of that, and so I just wanted to put that out there for her and for, I know you're in the rec department as well, to keep that in mind and keep, you know, whenever things look like we could work together on things, let's try to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that they're two separate budgets, but, you know, I think as a town as a whole, you know, I think we should be collectively working together to, you know, try to provide the best services for the town, but also to, you know, be conscious of the tax rate also. So, you know, I think through communication and working together, we can accomplish a lot of things. So with that, I will bid you farewell. Have a great evening. I hope your meeting's short.
Well, thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I'll give him a second. So next up is Chief Drolet. Thank you for coming by tonight as well. We appreciate it. I believe we wanted to talk to you about the possibility of having a resource officer here.
Yes.
I'm sure you guys maybe have been talking behind the scenes that we don't know, all of us know about, so fill us in on any of that.
So I was approached a few weeks ago by the superintendent's office to start exploring what it would take to get an SRO into the school. It's something that I've had kind of on my radar for a while now, so it's nice to see that. Kind of done some behind the scenes talking with people to see what the temperature of the water would be. It seems pretty warm, so I think at this point we would have to discuss, you know, where it wasn't a budgeted item for this year,
Right.
where the money would come from to pay for this position. And the town would also have to find the money, as the SRO position is generally an 80-20 split. 80% by the school, 20 by the town. That, you know, the officer is going to spend about 80% of his time at the school, And when school's on session, he'll be working on the road as a patrol officer. So that's where the 20% on the town side would come in.
Would we be able to hire him as just part-time, just as resource officer? I'm just wondering if the town, can't or doesn't find the money for that. Is there any arrangement where we could do something part-time and have him here for X number of hours? And
I'm not familiar with any situation like that.
okay. I don't know if
Something could-
someone would be interested in even doing that, but
Right.
yeah.
Because it's most likely going to be a full-time officer, so it would be difficult if he's only coming in for 2 or 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
How are we going to split up that time for the salary if, he does, half a shift here and half a shift out? Not really, I mean, that would be more of a,
Right.
if we're moving forward, financial
Yeah,
aspect of that.
The only reason I'm asking that is I could see, I think we have some money in our budget, but I'm not familiar with the town's budget. I don't know how much they, wiggle room they might have for that 20%, so that could be
Right.
a issue for them perhaps, in which case.
So I think what's going to happen, I mean, if you look at your side and say, because you're holding the bigger
Yeah.
piece of the candy bar here, so if you look at it and think you can do it, I think our next step would be for myself, for the superintendent, the chairman of the board, get on the selectmen agenda
Yeah.
with the police commission representative, kind of everyone that has a piece of this, getting in the same room and saying, okay, we want to do this, how are we going to do it, or this just isn't going to work. So
Sure.
I think that would be the next step for us to take.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Do you think there'll be any issues with getting the staff to do it? Will we be able to find some, an officer that would be willing to do this?
So right now, we do have an officer that is interested in it.
Okay,
I've
good.
spoken
Good.
with him about taking that position if it comes about. So having somebody in that position shouldn't be an issue.
Excellent.
The only problem would be we'd have to backfill his position in the department as a
Right.
patrol officer. So, we'd have to fill that prior to moving him into here because, that'd leave us short on that side. So.
Right, of course, yeah. All right, sorry, does anybody else have any questions? I don't want to monopolize the conversation. Yeah.
Dollar amount, what kind of salary, total benefits, what's the total figure we're looking at?
So I was able to talk with the finance director. The total amount is right around $82,000 with benefits and everything. So 67,000 probably on the school side, I think, rough.
65,600.
Then the town would have to come up with what, about 15?
65,600, and then the town's about 17,000, so. Okay. Do you have any idea on a time frame? I mean, is it too late to even talk about it this year, or?
That's all that's all gonna depend on how quickly everyone comes to an agreement. So, we're almost to mid-April now. If we get somebody in there in May, having them for 1 month and a half,
Yeah.
it's all gonna depend on how quickly we get everyone on board and then all the logistics laid out. So, could it possibly happen this year? I would say yes, but it may be only for the last month of school.
Right.
And so would he be spending 80% of 40 hours at the school on the?
No, so when school is in session, this is his assignment. So whatever that 8-hour day would be,
Yep.
7:30 to 3:30, whatever the school system is, he would take your traffic post for you. So I think Assistant Principal Alfred would be all for that at this point. But, he could handle that in the morning. Once school is in session, he'd be in school. He could teach DARE, he could teach other classes, he could teach, all the way down to kindergarten. I mean, DARE goes from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. Kind of with the school schedule, we only focus on 5th grade now, so that could be expanded as well with him in the school all the time. So all year long, he could be running some sort of DARE program with each grade level all the way up, from stranger danger all the way up to cyberbullying and all that, so.
What would be the expectation in the summer then?
He would become back on patrol. That's where the 20% would come in.
Okay, oh, it's not per week then, it's
You know, your
per
Christmas
season.
vacation, if he schedules his vacation for that week, great. If he doesn't, he would work the road as a patrolman for that week. So that's where the 20% of the town portion would come from. Anytime the school's not in session, he would be working for us as a patrol
Be
officer.
basically all of July and August, and then,
Get back into it.
yeah, okay.
But this is, our budget ends in June, right? So like, if we're looking for stuff in this current budget, we need to find enough money to finish off the school year from whenever he starts. And then next year, we'd have to, our budget's already set for next year too, so we'd have to
Right.
find that money somehow in the budget. Anyone else?
I just want to know, from those of you working in the school, Mr. Droulet said his perception is pretty warm. What do you think of from the staff and the faculty?
I haven't asked. I haven't heard any protest, so I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
I think there are other responsibilities that we could talk about, too. I mean, being in charge of the emergency management plan, doing those types of trainings for our staff. I mean, there are other things like that that I think that we could talk about that would reasonably fit.
So, in a K through 8 situation, is it unusual to have an officer in a school in New Hampshire if you take away all of the stuff that's been going on in the country? Because I always wonder, like, what is he going to do all day in a school that doesn't have a lot of fights, and a school that doesn't have a lot of kids ditching, or, I mean, the kind of school I went to. So that's just kind of what I'm wondering, what is it just to prevent the things we've been seeing in the media, basically? Is that
I think that's a piece of it, but I don't think that's all of it.
Okay.
And you ask, is it normal for an elementary school or K-8? I'm not sure there is anything normal about, what's done with resource officers. Some communities have them in every building. Some communities have one for a K-12 setting, and they kind of farm the person out and around. Some have additional duties. I think that the safety and security that we talked about the immediate past of some of the things that went on, that's a piece of it. I think more proactive in having discussions with kids, with parents, being available for, we have custody questions and those types of things that are legal questions that we could use them for. I could see the truancy officer piece of that coming out of this, if they're available during the daytime, obviously. So there are other little pieces, and he already talked about traffic control.
Yeah.
There are other pieces instead of just, I don't see this person sitting on a chair in the front door waiting
Right.
for something to happen.
Also,
you
that
know.
education piece that the chief talked
Right,
about. which
right,
is
the
really
dare
important
piece
as
and
well.
other things as well.
A lot of the SROs in those kind of settings also handle a lot of the disciplinary issues. So, it's not just the fights, but, I can tell you that we're down here a couple times a week, some weeks, other weeks we don't show up at all, but, and that's just one thing that, they don't have to fill out the form, send it to us. You have the officer right there.
Right.
Officer so-and-so, can you deal with this? And it's out of their hands, frees them up to do something else while he's dealing with the parents and, kind of looking into what exactly happened, so.
Yeah. I was just curious. Sorry.
But you're right, I mean, the level of interaction obviously is not going to be gang-related and,
Right.
those types of things. Thank goodness we don't have to worry about that.
Absolutely.
Preventative.
So, I mean, if we start this program, like, say, through the end of this year, and we find that, well, we don't necessarily need it full-time, could we maybe, is it a possibility of doing a little slopping around maybe too, and?
So that's more of the selectman question.
Right, right.
Because, I mean,
They'd have to pay the other.
we're kind of moving forward, like, you want this and this is full-time.
Yeah,
The selectman may say, well, if we're going to backfill the position,
that's true, then they don't want to.
now we've got a extra set of hands for the PD that they have nothing to do with now. So
Fair enough. Yeah,
I think,
makes sense.
kind of in for a dime, in for a dollar type of attitude that, at least for the first couple of years, to get the program running and expand it or contract it from there, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do we have a SRO officer at Co-Brown?
Yes.
Full-time?
Yeah, they've had
that
one
works
out
out.
there since 95, 96, I believe. It started with a COPS grant,
Mhm.
and then this Co-Brown took it over 100%, so.
I'm just wondering if it'd be something they'd be willing to share, or if that's a possibility too, or if they're pretty happy with it full-time, then.
Yeah, I
don't
mean, they
want to.
keep her pretty busy up there.
Yeah.
And the other factor is it's a contract position type of thing, so Co-Brown pays the bill 100%.
See.
So the town really doesn't have any direction on, you know, we can't just say, well, now you're going to go to elementary school for 3 hours a day. Because Co-Brown's going to say, well, where's
Yeah.
ours? So-
Right, we'd have to talk to them if anything on
Yeah.
that, but yeah. Another thing we had discussed was having potentially some security training. Is that something that, do you think a new officer would be able to get certified in to be maybe training the teachers for some of these
Yeah,
things?
so that would be part of his job description would also be, you know, right now I'm the one that comes in and do most of the training at the school.
Right,
So that would kind of be transferred over to him if he's going to be here.
yeah.
And that's how it kind of goes up at Co-Brown. She does a lot of CPR training and stuff like that for the teachers up there, so.
All right. Any other questions, or you have any questions for us?
No, I think,
Okay.
so basically I'll wait to hear from the SAU on the direction you want to go,
Yep.
and I'll put everyone in the same room and see where we're at.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for coming
Okay.
out tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I just ask for clarity on the next steps? I mean, it sounds like we want to move forward, but again, being sensitive to the end of the year coming quickly, what do we want to do next?
It's a good question. I mean, I think looking at the
Money piece of it.
money piece of it, yeah, we gotta make sure we have the money piece of it. But I think in our budget for 1 month's worth, it's,
Well, we did look at that a little bit, and for the remainder of this year, you know, you're going to be fine, because you're talking, what, $10,000, $15,000 that,
Right.
you know, your budget's in good shape for handling that. For next year, obviously, it gets a lot tighter. You can always order some things that are in next year's budget now, and utilize that money. But that creates some problems as well. I mean, we had talked about some of the technology things that are in your budget that would free up, well, now we're looking at $65,000. Some of the technology would free some things up, furniture, equipment, those types of things that we could order now out of this year's budget because your budget's in pretty good shape, and then utilize that money next year for the resource officer. But again, if you're going to do that, you know, I would recommend that at least a couple of board members sit down with me and Marjorie and Scott and Jocelyn and really look at, you know, where we're going to find $65,000.
so I think, yeah, we'd have to do that, and maybe at the same time, we can talk to the selectmen and get a meeting going there, because they're kind of disjoint, and see what they're feeling. I mean, if that's a hard no for them or something that,
Yep.
you know, may change our minds on things. So maybe schedule a meeting and then see if we can talk to them at the same time as we're doing this, and have some recommendations by the next board meeting. Do you think that's too soon?
If I can get a couple
weeks.
board members to meet with us, we can go over it and see what we can find for next meeting.
So the next selectmen's meeting is the 10th, which is next Tuesday.
Yep.
You probably need more time than that, or?
Well, at least next Tuesday, we can bring it up to them and see when they're available to maybe meet with us informally, if they are available. From there, it's hard. If we get too many people, we gotta post meetings and such, but I guess it's only
Well, as far as
24 hours lead time, right?
As far as next Tuesday goes, I mean, if you're willing or somebody's willing to go to that meeting and just let them know, yes, we'd like to move forward. And in the meantime, we can have a meeting and see what we can come up with for money
Yeah.
and bring it to the next board meeting in 2 weeks. That way the selectmen will know that we're going to progress on that, and we can get our
Right.
dollars in order.
And we'd actually have to be asking them for maybe a little more money out of this budget, right? Because
If
We're gonna
if
start
they're
off,
one
we're
in
gonna have
place.
one month in school and then 2 months, 3 months.
Their budget goes to January 1st, right?
Right, so they would, but the first, if we're doing 80/20, I assume, if we're doing 80/20, we're not paying month by month 80/20, are we? Or is that how it does work? Or do we pay like, if he's here
I
for the
think
first
it's-
month, we pay for that month, and then the next 2 months the town will pay for, you know what I mean? Do you know how that works?
Yeah, going towards the end of the year, I'm not sure how we'd figure that all out.
Yeah.
But I think going forward for a full year, it would be just at some point, the town would send the school district a bill saying, this is what your 80% of his yearly salary is,
Okay,
and do it that way.
Because remember, this would be a town employee.
Right, the town, he'd
So
be getting
they
a
would
check
just,
from the
they
town.
would just be
so-
billing us.
Right.
gotcha, right. So if there's billing us for 80% the whole time, then
Yeah, so-
they need to find 20% for the rest of the year in their current budget and next budget as well.
So I'm guessing if we did it for the remainder of the year, he'd be in school, he'd be here 40 hours a week until you got out, so basically the town, and I'm kind of speaking out of school, I'm not the finance director, but this town would end up just sending the school district a bill for 4 weeks at whatever his hourly salary is and the benefits and all that. And then when he's out of school, you just wouldn't see a bill for that because he'd be on the town portion, so.
Right.
Right, so just some quick math, it comes out to about $6,800 a month
For the town.
for the total cost. 82,000 divided by 12 is $6,800. So, if we're looking at May, June, we're looking at $13,600, so.
And another thing you might want to think of, and I don't know if he's on it or not, but if he doesn't take the insurance either too, that's a savings. I think he's on the family plan, so.
Yeah, you never plan on that, unfortunately.
So if you're willing to go to the selectmen meeting.
Sure.
And if I can get 2 board members willing to meet with us, we'll start scouring the budget to see what we can find for next year.
I'd be willing to meet, I'm just limited to 4:30 or later during the week, which is unfortunate for some people.
I got daytimes Fridays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Well, not this next Tuesday, but Wednesdays. And Fridays.
Monday mornings, Wednesday mornings.
Do you have Wednesday mornings, you said?
Sounds like we can find 2 people at least, so, yeah, I think we should be good to go then. I mean, because I'm available too for most times.
Okay.
Like mid-afternoon, so.
Well, let me know who and when, and we'll.
Yeah, well, let's,
we'll figure it out.
maybe let's plan that for next Wednesday after the selectmen meeting. So that if we go to the selectmen meeting and the selectmen are like, hell no, then we don't get to waste our time, because,
Okay, Wednesday morning, did I hear 2 Wednesday mornings?
I think it could be possibly 3, so yeah, we'll make it happen.
Well, you can't have 3.
I know we can't have 3,
Oh.
but either,
an
at
alternate,
least 2
yeah.
of us will be there.
Yeah.
Okay, Wednesday, SAU, what time?
I can come after 9.
Same.
neither of you can, if either of you can't make it for whatever reason, give me a call, I should be able to go.
Like 9:30?
9:30.
Sure.
Next Wednesday. Great. We will find money.
All right. We all set with Chief Jolie? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Okay, we do need to have a non-public session under RSA 91:A-3, parts
A, B, and C.
A, B, and C. Is there a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to do that.
I'll second, so we have to roll call in. Ms. Gunter?
Yes.
Mr. McGuigan is yes.
Ms. Winslow's yes.
Salmon?
Yes.
Mr. Wells? All right. In our non-public, no votes were taken, and we did discuss personnel and student issues. So, next up, opening public comment. All of you know the rules. I won't go over them. Going to make our meeting shorter. All right, good. Any board members want to take this opportunity for opening public comment? Once, going twice, going, gone. We will close our public comment session and move into our approval of board minutes. I think we have a packet starting on Page 4.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from March 12th.
Packet, that's not the thing. I will second that for discussion. Is there any discussion or corrections for these minutes? These are the public minutes of March 12th. Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as written? Mr. Wells? What do you think
I
on
don't know
this?
if I was here.
You were here. Where do the minutes you were here? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Any opposed? Any abstaining? 2 abstaining, so motion carries 3-0 with 2 abstentions. March 22nd, we have a non-public session on page 11.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that. Any discussion on these? All right, all in favor of approving the non-public minutes of March 22nd as written? Unanimous, 5. On page 12, we have the public minutes of our session on March 22nd.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion or,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, if somebody something first, but right at the end, after we came, before the meeting adjourned, I believe we took one more vote. Unless it's somehow it came up earlier or whatever, but we got into non-public session, we came out of non-public session, we voted, took a vote as a board before we closed.
do you remember what that motion was?
I made a motion to accept the proposal that we discussed in non.
Right,
Yeah,
that's right,
about
the
the
student
student.
proposal.
Yeah.
Yes, we did, yep. So let's put that in there then, amend that to accepting the student proposal that was discussed in non-public. Motion made by Mr. Winslow,
Yeah, no, I
don't remember who
believe you
seconded.
seconded, but I'm not sure.
Seconded by Ms. Gunter, and I believe it was unanimous, if I remember correctly.
That's what I remember.
Yep, thank you very much for remembering that. That's all we need for the,
Public minutes.
this is in the public minutes, yeah. This happened after, right before adjournment, after the non-public session. Any other corrections or discussion? No. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Motion carries 5-0. That's all of our minutes.
Keith, Suzanne, do we have one outstanding minutes now?
Yes.
Is that? do
The
we-
February 22nd.
Yes, she sent me an email, and
What is
There's
it?
an item in there.
Well, it's a meeting where
Right.
she wasn't able to make
I
it.
wasn't here.
Okay.
so I.
He wasn't
think
able to make it either, so all we had was Mr. Wells taking notes, so.
Okay.
We
Well, you
need-
won't take my job away.
we need to extract those notes from her.
No, not at all. Security.
Just a reminder, because we got to get those done, so.
Yep,
Thank you.
And just, even
we'll
if,
have them tomorrow.
even if it's a raw format, just send them our
That'll
way,
be
and we
good,
can,
yeah.
we can fix them up.
Right, right,
On fly,
yes.
don't worry about
Well,
it.
you have it from Gary already,
I
right?
do,
We
and
just
I-
need the notes.
Oh, he was here, oh, okay.
Yep.
Gary,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
And I got it. So, yeah, it can be real rough, just the.
Oh, yeah, it is rough, very rough.
That's awesome. Oh, yeah.
All right. Assistant Superintendent's report.
My report begins on page 21. For the new board members, I'll run through it with a little more detail tonight. Not too much, I won't overwhelm you or take a lot of time. Indicators have to do with the special education performance plan that's developed by the state that measures the state's overall implementation of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Part of that state performance plan is each district is required to provide data on different indicators that are called. Indicator 11 is the most sticky because if you get anything less than 100%, you are not in compliance and enter corrective action. If you turn to the back of my report the last page, you'll see that, if I can get there, that you received your letter a little over 2 weeks ago that talked about you being in compliance in that indicator. And then in the second paragraph, it gives you your history for the last 3 years. So that's good, you've been in compliance with that. If you go back to page 21, of course, it's transition time. So our preschool to elementary transitions for Northwood, our 8th grade to Co-Brown transitions are all underway. Those are a lot of meetings for your schools and your administrators from the SAU as they pass the torch to the next level. Again, Mr. Byrne and covers Co-Brown and the Northwood kids. I covered Dover, but Mr. Byrne's been attending a lot of meetings at Co-Brown because your annual reviews are up. So your IEPs need to be put back in place and for the next year. So my office has been busy with that. In addition to that, the three of us, Mrs. LaValle, who's your preschool and child find coordinator, Mr. Byrne, and I, have been attending various professional development activities, a lot that have to do with changes in law. This is probably, I think if you talk to different central office administrators around the state, you'd find that this is one of the busiest legislative sessions that we've seen. And so the legal updates are numerous. And of course, we have to figure out how to take those law changes and make sure that we're in compliance. I attended your cyberbullying and bullying state conference that actually our speaker was from the Massachusetts Reduction Center. It's some real tangible, good stuff to work with faculty with that I'll be talking to Jocelyn about and doing some training around. Of course, your PTAN, your Preschool Technical Assistance Network, had professional development. And Rochester got selected for focus monitoring, so Mr. Byrne attended that to see what the new focus monitoring process looks like that. We did some work with the Rural Education Leadership Network. And then, of course, between me attending curriculum meetings at the Southeast level and Dr. Domsky doing the superintendents, Mr. Byrne also does the special ed regional meetings. So it's been really busy. If you look below that, that's your census, your current census, and then if you flip the page, you can see the up-downs from the previous month. And the only other update that I have for you, I spent some time at the New Hampshire Homeland Security yesterday, which is the most secure building I think I've ever seen, and spent some time with the school readiness folks, trying to figure out a way for us to work together at reevaluating our EOPS. Your emergency operation plan was just updated within the last 2 years. But given recent events and discussions, we want to take a look at adjusting some things. So at this point, tentatively, I've got a scheduling email out for administrative retreat over the summer, which involves all 3 schools. We're trying to get police, fire, and each administrator together with their EOPS, do some tabletop exercises to see if there's things that are missed. And they've also agreed to walk through each of the buildings in the district and make any additional security recommendations from their level. I'm looking forward to a collaborative process. They were rather engaging. I was there for about an hour and a half yesterday. And so we'll move forward that over the summer. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to the principal's report then.
Good evening. Minor adjustment to the agenda. Under curriculum director, it says math score presentation. I'm going to take that, and it's the NWA scores broken out that the board had requested in March, so I'll do that, and then she will do the report card presentation. But I will start with our report that starts on page 24, and Adrian apologizes for his absence. He had other things he had to attend to tonight. So kudos to third grade. They put on a great performance at the end of March called Flake, which was really a lot of fun. Had great turnout, and several staff members were able to attend and cheer on the kids as well, so that was fun. NEASC, we received our letter notifying us that we have been awarded candidacy status, so that's exciting. I don't know exactly what that will look like, so we are supposed to meet with George Edwards this spring to look at what the process is and set a timeline.
They sent yes, did send us a letter to the board, so I can pass this around. If you guys want to check it out. Sorry.
One thing that I am looking for board approval for tonight is the contract with the bus company to provide transportation to Washington DC for our 8th graders. They had provided a standard agreement that had a lot of flaws. For one thing, it said that we were in Illinois. Also had some liability omissions, as in they were going to assume none, even if they were at fault. So we sent that on over to the insurance company and the attorney, and they both made recommendations that are now reflected in an addendum. We have the signed addendum from the bus company agreeing to that. So we're looking for board approval to sign the addendum and the agreement. In terms of getting ready for next year, we're starting to look at master scheduling. We'll start that right up after April vacation. We are looking, obviously one of the things that we need to look at is how many sections of each grade level we will have. As a small school, we have to be pretty flexible with that. The way it shakes out is 2 grades are going to have slightly smaller classes, and so we try to be strategic about that in terms of meeting kids' needs, and really being purposeful with where we put 3 sections. So the breakdown is there. So we're looking at 2 kindergarten, 2 first, 2 twos, and then 3 threes and 3 fours, 2 5th grades, 3 6th grades, 3 7th grades, and 2 8th grades. That is not set in stone at this point, but that's sort of our working plan at this point. And then with 3 sections of 7th grade, next year we will be able to offer a pre-algebra class, and then have 2 other general math classes. And then for 8th grade, we'll have to do something similar to what we did with 7th grade this year, where the 8th graders will have their regular math class that provides differentiated instruction in a heterogeneous group. And then when the What I Need block will be used for the algebra instruction piece. The rationale for that is if we level them for math with only 2 groups, then they're leveled for everything, and that's not best practice.
Just ask a quick question about that, and then I'm looking at 4th and 5th grade, right? 4th grade, you have 3 sections with about 13 each, so that's about 39 kids, right? If I do my math right, and then 5th grade, you have 2 sections with 21 each.
Yep.
So it's actually 42 5th graders.
Right.
Well, why the difference there? Why did you decide to go that way?
So our current 2nd grade and current 3rd grade are high needs classes, both special education wise, behavior wise. It really is based on student need.
Okay. All right.
The next item is the prioritized list of suggestions for use of the surplus funds from this year. So the most recommended is at the top, and then they get less recommended as you proceed down the list. So Infinite Campus, that was something that the board had indicated interest in switching over to align with Co-Brown, better usability, if that's a word. So we can cover the annual cost in next year's budget, but there is an initial setup fee that we have not budgeted for, so that is the primary recommendation. The next 2 relate to safety. Having another AED in the building in event of an emergency is a good idea. We had talked about the office, and particularly the entrance situation. Having the courtyard entrance and the front entrance is not super secure, particularly the courtyard entrance, since we have to keep that interior door propped open all the time. So the office engineer study was to look at, refabricating sort of the entrance to the school to have it a single secure entrance. Charging carts for the 7-8 netbooks. So we do have an expectation that kids take their netbooks home every night and charge them. Realistically, that doesn't happen. And so what we're finding is that kids are coming to class with partially charged netbooks that are about to die and therefore are not able to complete the work that has been assigned using those netbooks. We don't have enough outlets, and they don't reach, they can't reach from the tables to the outlets even if there were enough. So having charging carts would allow kids to leave their computers on the carts during recess and lunch to charge, or they could even leave them here overnight if they didn't need to take them home to charge. So that is a recommendation. Front Row is software that first and second grade in particular have been using. There is a free version. There is a paid version that they are eager to get their hands on at some point, whether it's next year or the year after. We'll build it into the budget next year if we need to, or we'll certainly build it into the budget next year. The next item is a sort of software-based sign-in, so rather than filling out your name on a clipboard where everybody else could see it that you're in the building or that you've signed out a kid, it would enable visitors and parents to sign themselves and their kids in and out electronically. So it prints out stickers that would serve as a visitor badge, tells what time somebody arrived, allows for the office staff to have to do a little bit less paperwork. So that's a suggestion. Mac OS X server is just to help with the iPads, not really sure. The gym system upgrade is basically a mixer board so that somebody coming in can easily just plug their stuff in and use the speakers in the gym versus having to set up something separate.
How often do people come in to use that?
Parent presentations, the evening events, when we did during the day assembly, when the other schools joined us, that type of stuff. So several times a year.
There was some discussion at the deliberative session that I recall. I forget if it was about the projector or if it was about the sound. But
I think it was a projector, but
okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing on there was we have the capital improvement plan that indicates that a new sign out front should be in the works in the next couple of years. So we threw that on there.
So, AEDs. Do the coaches bring AEDs with them? Do they have them with them? Like when they're down at the soccer field or softball field, baseball field, is there AED down there?
That's a good question. I don't know.
And I think the answer is no. So I would like to plus that up to make sure that coaches have an AED as part of their equipment. So instead of running all the way up to the school or calling a fire department or.
Are they separate? Like, are these
Yeah,
portable ones?
yeah, a little bag. They come in a
Right.
bag, yeah.
Right.
So.
Like the ones that sit on the walls are a little different than the
Yeah,
ones
I
that you
would
would
say,
portable ones. I imagine,
one
right?
for, I guess you could probably just need two, one for the girls and one for the boys, and when they play baseball, and they just take it with them away, or it's just part of their equipment.
Good idea. Just looking at these, the only thing that concerns me is that, 3, 4, 5 of these are getting in on a subscription, thing where you pay a little bit up front now and then you've got to pay next year and every year after that. And we haven't budgeted in next year's budget for any of these things either, so.
Well, the Front Row subscription would be next year's subscription, and then we could build it into the 1920 budget.
Right, but it's not in the budget for next year yet, right?
Right, so that's why we would use surplus funds for it.
So it'd be, our startup costs would be right.
Right, we're just paying the startup cost, but then the subscription we pay out of the next year's budget, right?
Right, we'd build it into the following year's budget. So this would pay for the 18-19 school year. And then
Okay.
So, yeah.
I see what
in
you're
the
saying.
fall
Okay, I
process,
gotcha.
we'd budget for 1920.
I
Yeah, but
understand.
what you're saying is that we just have to budget every year for that, whatever that cost is for the next 20 years, whatever, yeah.
Well, if we decide to go with it, I mean, unless it's a long-term contract, I'm sure we can do it year by year.
It's not done.
And is that just on the Front Row subscription you're talking? So this Front Row subscription cost is pre-buying it for next year, basically, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the case for the other ones, is it? Or is it? Maybe I'm wrong.
It is. So for all of these things, we're talking about paying for it for next year. And then we
Okay.
would build it into next year's
Okay.
budget,
I got you.
or the following
And that's
year's
something you'd have to have further conversation about, because technically you're not supposed to buy something for next year out of this year's funds, so a subscription might be problematic.
Right.
So I'm always been a huge fan of the sign. Always wanted a sign out there from day one. We need a sign. I think since Mr. Tom has been around, I think we went maybe 1 or 2 weeks with the same thing on there, that there was a school dance or something that was 2 weeks old or something. I forget exactly what it was, but an electronic sign would be fantastic. And one thing I'd like to see too is, I've been saying it for the last 2 years, is our building is so ugly and the landscaping is so horrible. If we could do something with that too. I think that.
So, I mean, we do have the capital improvement fund
Yeah.
for that now, which I think has, what, $20,000 in it? Remember? That was whatever our matching grant one was.
Yes, I believe it was 20. So we got just over 20 now.
Just over, right, with interest or whatever. I mean, I think that's why we did that capital improvement thing, so big things like the sign. I think we should continue to contribute to it, you know, and when we have enough money to buy things, I'm all for it. I have a hard time, like, unfortunately Marjorie's not here, but we don't have our numbers, do we? As far as like, what is our surplus standing at right now?
Well, we went over that at the last meeting. I'm trying to remember what
It
it
was
was.
like,
It was 500,000, wasn't it?
it was close to that, but it was close, you know, between 4 and 5, I think. And do we get numbers as to how much?
Yeah, I think what I would suggest is, if any of these are items that you would like to support, we can come to the next meeting, which Marjorie's going to be at, and go over your financials. We'll know exactly where we're at. But you really need to make a decision. We need to be moving at the next meeting. Because if not, we're going to run out of time.
If you want to look, I have a verse from last.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. I mean, I was just, the numbers I was actually looking for is just not only our surplus, but, you know, how much over are we, how much are we planning on giving back because of insurance? How much are we giving back because of, you know, less Co-Brown
Yeah.
kids? How much savings do we have in special
Yep.
ed? You know,
Yep.
so take our total surplus, subtract that out, how much is left?
Right, and that's
And
what
then
she was,
target.
that's what she's working on for
Yeah,
the
okay.
next meeting, so.
Right, right. I don't know, what do you guys think? What do you want to do with this?
I'm all for, I mean, this is, compared to years past of what was requested, I think that this is feasible. I think even if we went through all the financials, I think we would still have plenty of money left over that we would give back to the town. So I think none of these are outrageous. So I'm in favor of them.
I think Bob might be right about the subscription ones. The Infinite Campus one is not a subscription, though. It's a startup fee. So I think you might be able to get that one by, but the other two, maybe not.
Right, you can do the startup fee, but what that means is that we have to pay the subscription costs next year, and we didn't budget for that. Right, even if we pay
No.
the startup fee now, we didn't budget for
Well, that
Infinite Campus.
covers that. That's what she just said.
Right, so for Infinite Campus, we do have a budget for MMS, so if we're switching from MMS to Infinite Campus, we can use the MMS money for Infinite Campus, we just don't have the initial
And that's
money.
comparable.
Yeah, it's a little bit more, but it's not
Okay.
a
All
big
right,
deal.
I see, all right, you're right.
So-
I
so
forgot
that
about
one is-
aspect of it.
Coverable, I think.
And the other thing I want to keep in mind is if we do want a resource officer here for the rest of the year, that's going to cut into our surplus as well. And if we want a resource officer for here next year, that's going to cut into our budget for next year as well. So, you know, if we're signing up for these subscription things that we're paying for next year, we want to keep that in mind, you know.
I personally, I'm hesitant about the new sign. I know, like, it's just a price tag, but also, like, I guess maybe I'm just old-fashioned in a way. I don't really mind the cutout letters stuck up there. It doesn't bother me.
It's a pain in the butt, I think, actually.
Yeah, I did that once when I was a teenager, and it is a pain in the butt. But
Yeah. I mean, I'm perfectly okay. Honestly, the safety things, AEDs and the engineering study, I definitely am for. The server upgrade of $100, that's fine, obviously. Everything else I would need a little more convincing on, I think, but.
I think the sign really is, I mean,
A sign that, I mean, I'd say we save up for the sign. Let's do
Yeah.
the sign, but let's do it right. Let's budget for it, let's put it, you know, use our capital reserve
honestly,
fund and.
that's what the capital reserve fund is
Yep,
for.
that's
Is
what it's
that
for, yeah.
exactly why we have that?
Yep, if we want to try to put $20,000 in the capital reserve fund for next year. We do have 10,000 going into it this year too.
Right.
Is that, no, this is a different one, sorry.
I don't know, I just don't think using a capital reserve fund for a sign is, I mean, if we have surplus money, just knock it out, pay for it. And, I mean, you drive by the school, right? And you got to think that, when people drive by the school, and it's perception. You look by, you look at a crappy sign, you look at crappy landscaping. Right? I'm not trying to mask anything, but when you have something that's beautiful, like the Cole Brown sign, and you look at that campus, you're like, holy Christ, I want my kid to go with grass. Like, I want my kid to go there. And so those people that drive all the way from Portsmouth, right, that can't afford schools, their houses in Portsmouth anymore, and they drive to Concord to work every day, and they see Northwood, and they see a beautiful sign, they see some landscaping, and see where the direction of the school's going. I mean, that's just...
I don't disagree with you. I think that that's something we should budget for if it's important to us, and use it. And
How long will it take us to get the money if we budget for it?
if we budget for it, our first, we budget will be for next year, 2019, 20?
1920.
The 1920 budget, so it'd be a year and a half from now.
I just think that that's going to be a hard sell to the taxpayers. They already rejected a new sign for Town Hall last year. So
It wasn't last year, it was like 3 years ago.
I wasn't here 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was
I remember that being on the ballot.
That was 2 years, I thought it was 2 years.
2 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, it definitely wasn't last year.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with it. I'd rather budget. I don't want to have, be at the end of the year when we have extra money because we didn't use it and be like, oh, let's just use it then.
Yeah,
that's not
exactly.
That's not the
It-
attitude I want to take towards this. I'd much
to be
rather,
part of the plan.
let's prioritize it, let's plan for it, let's budget for it, and
Well, then, I mean, there's so much more that we can do, too. All right, I'm a person that wants to spend money, spend it, right? So, if we're not gonna do the sign, let's look at the pavement out front. That pavement is horrible. I mean, we got that pooling thing that, Tim was talking about over by the lunch, that all that needs to be ripped out, and fixed. There's a lot of things that could be done with this surplus money. And I'm more willing to put money into that than a sign, but if this is what the administration wants, then.
yeah, I mean, that's something to think about too. I mean, this is a prioritized list, I assume, right? This is, in order, if you had money to take, you would start with the top, and then you would work your way down, right? I don't see that on here, the pavement.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, but it's definitely something that, if it's not fixed, it's gonna be an issue. That water might eventually try to get be in the cafeteria at some point.
Yeah, something we should look into.
And right now, I think it's a little bit too late to put out a couple RFPs for come and fix that. It's now looking into May, the time before we vote
It'd be a
on that.
real quick turnover.
Yeah. So, but, all right.
So what are people thinking? What do you want to do?
I think you could go with pretty much everything except the front row subscription and the sign. I think other than those two,
And you're saying not the front row just because
because it's a subscription.
subscription and we're
for-
paying for it next year.
Exactly.
Although technically, Infant Campus is like, well,
Except
except
it's not.
we'll be
Yeah.
paying for that. Yeah, that's true. It's also use it this year.
That one's different, so
Okay.
yeah.
Just before, I want to agree with you, I just, where that's really supporting the primary teachers who really are advocating for it, what are the steps to go through to where if Mr. Godomsky, you had said there's some kind of thing we have to do if we're spending for next year's budget?
Well, I would check with our auditor as well as Marjorie and ask if that's something, because technically, we're not supposed to be buying things for next year out of this year's budget.
Okay.
So, there's always that fine line at the end of the year of trying to get ahead and purchase things and get them done by the end of the year. But something like a subscription, in my mind, is completely for next year. That has nothing to do with this year. So there may be some question. I'm gonna check on that one just to make sure that I'm looking at it right. But typically, it's you're not supposed to buy things for next year out of this year's budget.
Okay.
Can we just entertain, and if the board would like to, see if we can push out an RFP on what it would cost to fix the front?
The entire front.
Entire front, from where the new pavement, from where the buses exit from the day all the way to where the new pavement came in when they did in front of the fire department. And also addressing the issue with the water out front and by the kitchen.
Are these issues you're aware of that
We've
Tom has
just,
brought up, or? I'm just wondering
more at the
where,
facilities committee.
is there a reason that these aren't on the list?
So I'll say in Mr. Tom's absence and a lack of facilities meetings, I was not comfortable making facilities-based recommendations.
Fair enough for me.
And, I know this is like pushing time frame, and we had the same issue last year and the year before. Can we reach out to Tom and just ask?
Technically, no.
No?
No, we're not supposed to. He's out on leave. I mean, he's not working.
So a friendly visit by a friend?
So while you're looking at that front row subscription, I mean, the other thing we have is the check-in basic for office visitor and student signups. Right?
That's
That's
software.
500.
Oh, that is that's
Yeah.
a subscription also.
Looks like it,
It
right?
looks like it's $500.
Yeah.
I'll check both of those.
Thank you.
I mean, if we're just doing
I
just the
like
first year, then the 500 needs to come out of our budget next year. Maybe that's not so terrible, but.
I'll check both of
I
those.
don't know what our
if
budget's
that's
gonna be
possible.
next year. Right. So if, like, I was adding up, everything other than the sign comes out to, if I did my math right, 11,755.
That's it.
Yeah, I know, that's less than I thought too.
Plenty
Are
of
you
room for
sure?
that
I thought there was
Nope.
more than that.
I could well be
I,
wrong.
I thought it was more like 22, but let me just double check.
Well, also too, I would highly suggest plussing the AEDs up to, probably up to $2,000.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, yeah, if we actually want those. So that'd be 2, 4, 8, no, I must have done it wrong, sorry. 11, 12, no, it's not far off, maybe 12 and a half. If we leave out the front row subscription.
Oh, okay, yep, you're right, yeah.
I think he
Leaving out
wants,
the front row subscription and the sign, right?
I think he
Are you
wants
leaving
half
out
the
the
sign.
school
He
check-in
wants
as
half the
well?
sign.
No,
Because it's a subscription. I mean, you can't do
I'll
half
check
of it and
I'll
not.
check on the subscriptions just to make sure.
I mean, if we can, that's great, but
If you
if
can,
it's.
I'll bring them back. If not,
not,
then-
we'll
I assume for the school check-in that what we'd be talking about is the $600 upfront cost for this year, and then we'd pay the $500 annual next year.
And that can be built into the budget. So
that
it's, again,
probably-
it's
right.
that startup fee. It's not exactly a
Right.
subscription, so you might
Right.
be able to.
And 500 out of our next year's budget, I imagine we can swing that, you know, even though we didn't budget for that. I don't know what the subscription is for the front row, do you know? What the upfront versus yearly cost is?
The 3250 would be from
That's the-
June, like June 30th to June 30th.
So that's each year is 3250, right, yeah.
For K through 2, I mean, we could do it just for the first and second are using it a lot right now. I threw K in there, because why not? But, I mean, we could bring it down if we needed to.
One more question. About the sign. So, Jocelyn, you put $40,000 there. Is that an estimate? Have you looked into the signs, like how much would it cost? Do you have someone in mind, or?
I don't have firm numbers. I did look just online at some options, and it looks like you can get like a really fancy sign for about 60 and a pretty basic sign for about 30. So I kind of went more towards the basic. I mean, I don't think we need like the world's Lamborghini equivalent of signs.
Yeah.
So that's an estimate. We had 50,000 on the CIP. I don't know where that number came from, but somewhere in that ballpark.
So we had talked about pavement out front. I don't know what that number's gonna be. Do you want me to see if I can get a quick estimate for next meeting, and then if it's something you wanna do, then we can send it out for RFP?
Yeah, I think if you,
'Cause I don't wanna do an RFP and get everybody bidding on it, and if we're not gonna do it.
so if I reached out to Mr. Hodgson, I spoke to him about it, and he was part of it at one point, and what the problem is with that area is that you just kept on piling layers and layers and layers of tar on top. All right, and
Every
then
once in a while you
everything's
dig it out.
sliding that way.
Yeah.
So everything needs to be ripped out. So I think if you reached out to him and asked him, hey, what would be an estimate of ripping it all out, regrading it, and repaving it, we'd probably get a good ballpark figure.
Yeah.
30,000 is what we have in the CIP for that.
My gut says it's low, but I'm.
Yeah,
it is.
I don't know how to estimate whether it's going to be 40,000 or 140,000,
Right,
you know?
right.
So,
Especially ripping it all out.
yeah, it's gonna be a little bit expensive, because I remember when we requested the RFPs for the pavement in front of the fire department and the dumpsters, for them to do what it would cost just to repave, because it was all bumpy, the whole thing. And that would came to like $75,000 for just repaving.
I'll see if you'll give me a quick estimate, just, you know, a ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, every time I do the math, it comes out different, so I have no idea how far I am, but if we up the AED to 2,000, and we skip the front row subscription, I have a total of, and the sign, if we don't include that, I have a total of 13,305, which, if we are looking at $400,000 in surplus, it's not too bad, just scratching the surface, so.
All right, we'll do the best we can to get answers on this and detail it out. And Marjorie will bring back the financials next time. We'll also bring you a number with insurance, tuition, and special ed taken out of it,
Great.
so you'll know what you have left.
And maybe the resource officer too.
Yep, resource officer.
So that'll come out of surplus as well.
And if I could encourage you to be ready to make some decisions at the next meeting, because we got to move on it.
So what does the board want to do for these items, though? I mean, do you want to wait until, give them the preliminary go-ahead and then final approval at the next meeting?
I
Based on
think
those
that's
numbers?
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, we already have the prices. We don't need RFPs, because they're under $5,000 anyway, so they want stuff that is priority. We can definitely vote on in plenty of time, but just that paving thing is the biggest issue, and of course, SRO.
Is there any reason not to approve the things we're all comfortable with tonight?
The only thing, I'd like to see the numbers, to see what we're looking at.
Okay,
Just
sure.
to make sure, that's the only thing holding me back, at least.
Okay.
And I don't think it's a priority that has to be done tonight.
Yeah, 2 more weeks on this stuff that I'm looking at here shouldn't be a problem. The problem is when you've got to do RFPs and things, that pushes it out 6
Okay.
to 8 weeks. For this stuff, we can process that pretty quickly.
So, it's my understanding that this is the full list, other than perhaps the pavement and the resource officer. This is the full list of the surplus spending that will be asked for. Yes?
That's all I've heard.
That we're recommending. I mean, I think the board is
Yeah,
certainly able to add items to the list as
Sure.
well.
Sure. Yeah, but just curious, because it does happen that we get
Like
things
the
at the last minute sometimes.
Well, just before we go on, Mr. Wells brought up landscaping out front. That's something I'd be willing to look at too. I don't know what the process is to go about from here to there, but
And landscaping is just beautification, I guess. Some of the trees don't even bloom. You know, you got that nice wall that's got the bevel there, and you could you could put nice painting up there. You could put Northwood School, Lakers Pride, something like that, that say there's some kind of school pride. You know, you drive by it, it's a brown building. That's all it
And
is.
the courtyard's kind of a mess.
In the
too.
courtyard, yeah, would spruce up the courtyard. Just.
So how about
I love the
this?
school. My kids go here. I love being part of the school board, but when I drive in this place, it is ugly. It is ugly.
So the facilities committee will get together to talk about the pavement then, at some point between now and then, and get quotes. Maybe they can discuss that as well and bring that, facilities committee can bring that to the board at our next meeting. Does that make sense? That's you, right?
Yeah, I will be meeting with you very shortly. And then, it's just me, right?
I think it is.
I think it is, because I know no one else could make it, okay.
So how about that? No guarantees, but at least get an idea maybe and talk to people and see what it would take.
Yeah.
You guys all set?
No, I gotta keep going now.
yeah, fundraiser.
Just want to make sure everything is clear to you guys. You don't need any clarifications on anything.
Additional items on our report. So 8th grade, earlier in the year, had already been approved to do a pizza fundraiser. And then when they got the stuff for the pizza fundraiser, Little Caesars also included a plants and seeds and that type of stuff that they think goes with it, but out of an abundance of caution, I wanted to bring that as a separate fundraiser for board approval. And then also looking for approval of a donation to the class of 2018 in the amount of $94 on behalf of Karen Brieger, and we appreciate that donation. So the three things I'm looking for approval on are the bus bank agreement, that we can go ahead and sign that, the Bottom Line Technologies donation, and the 8th grade flower fundraiser.
Motion to approve all three as written?
Second, any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then my last piece is, I will pass this around, I hope I made enough. So at the first meeting in March, the board had requested more broken down NWEA data. Just as a reminder, NWEA is the computer-based assessment that students take for sure in the fall and in the winter, and then teachers have the option of administering it in the spring. We don't mandate it in the spring because there's already so much other testing that's mandated in the spring. NAEP, if it's a NAEP year, what used to be Smarter Balanced and is now the New Hampshire statewide assessment. And we used to have the NECAP, but now that's rolled into the New Hampshire statewide assessment. So this is each grade level, so K through 5, because they are self-contained, are broken out by classes, and then 6 through 8, because they're departmentalized, are broken out just by grades. I did not put identifying information on here. There are no teacher names, and they are in no particular order. And the reason for that is no one teacher is responsible for students' achievement or lack thereof. It is a team effort. We all work hard to do the best for each kid. And so just to explain a little bit what you're looking at. So I provided for each grade level the average score for each class in the fall for reading and math, the average score in the winter for that, and how much that went up. The numbers in parentheses in bold are the norm. So for kindergarten, for example, the norm change or increase is 10.3 points. So that gives you a sense of how our kids compared to that norm. The percentage of students who met or exceeded their projected score, so NWA projects how a kid will do in the winter based on how they did in the fall based on the norms. The norm for NWA is that at least 50% of kids would meet that or exceed their score. So that tells you about how many students impacted the growth. And then the next number is the percentage of projected growth met. So that's overall how much growth did we meet. We want to see at least 100% on there. So that gives you a sense of sort of what's typical and how we compared. Of course, the national norms are the national norms. We always want to do better. So, we celebrate where we did better, and then we look pretty closely at how we can do better where we fell short. So you'll see there's a lot of really good numbers, and then there's some that are works in progress.
For those works in progress parts, what are we looking into doing? Are we doing
Well,
curriculum development or increasing mentorship or?
the first thing we're doing is looking at other data points too. I mean, this is one
Sure.
data point. So one of the things we're trying to do is get better at figuring out how kids are doing sort of on a daily basis by increasing formative assessment, having a variety of normed-based assessments. So DIBELS would be another example. We compare then also to we will compare to the New Hampshire statewide assessment. So if we see a trend of kids in a certain grade level or class not doing well, then yes, absolutely, we're going to intervene. We're going to provide some more support and coaching for that teacher. If those other data points are stronger, then we consider this to be an anomaly. So that's the first step. The second step we do is have conversations about the data. And so if kids in Kat's class did really well and kids in my class didn't, what can I steal from you? What are you doing that's working? And sometimes it is a discrete, observable practice or strategy, and sometimes it's just the dynamic of a class. These are complex little beings that we work with every day, and sometimes they're not in the space to take the test on any given day, or somebody was disruptive or whatever. So we try to consider those factors. One thing we've been doing is trying to get a better sense of what they can actually do. The NWA tells us how long a kid takes a test for. And so we encourage teachers, if you notice that little Johnny took the test in 7 minutes when his classmates took it in 45, let's have Johnny take it again. Some kids are more willing to do that than others. So, we consider all of those variables.
Anybody have any questions on this? Thank you for the breakdown, Chris. A nice graph right there.
I thought of you. And if you have a way to put this
No,
in a
I
graph,
don't
you
think
let
so.
me know.
I was just kidding.
This was a fun afternoon. Okay, I think that is all I have for you. Unless you have any questions or comments.
Do we have any questions either on this or on anything for our principal? No, thank you very much. All right. When you sign the bus contract, do you have that somewhere, or is that?
I think that's the superintendent. We just wanted
Okay.
approval for him to
Okay.
sign it.
We'll move on to the curriculum director's report then.
So we have the standards-based report card, and I'll present that to you in the form of a PowerPoint, hopefully in just a couple minutes. We had a professional development session on using classroom discussion to increase student engagement. And there was a really healthy discussion, and a lot of teachers talking about different practices that they use in their classrooms, or different practices they could use in their classrooms. So that was really good to see. It was obvious there was a lot of reflection and a lot of passion, I think, in the room in terms of getting students where they need to be. It was great. There was a professional book group that met. Again, we were looking at different instructional strategies. We were discussing different techniques that could be used in the classroom to ensure that every student is where we would like them to be in terms of maximizing student achievement. So that was another great thing to see in the building. And I think for at least a year, there's been some discussion about possibly getting another assessment to use for reading. And I happen to be in a room and listening to that discussion. So we're going to be continuing that discussion to talk about different assessments that we can use in addition to DIBELS and NUA, really looking at how much students are comprehending text. So we're going to be continuing that and making sure that we're putting any resources that we need in the fall budget for the 19-20 school year. Okay. Let's go. See if I can get the PowerPoint up for you.
It's always a challenge because it needs to
See
warm
if
up with
the- I
something
know,
first.
see if the technology will work for
Yeah.
me. Fingers crossed.
I'm not trying to freak you out.
Oh, no, that's all good. What? How do I look it up?
It's coming.
Okay.
It's just waking up. Shake it.
It's going.
Throw water at it.
I'd like to.
Don't shake it.
Turn off the music.
What?
I don't just waste anything, so.
So we're talking about standards-based learning and assessment. Okay, this is not going.
it.
Oh, good, it's not just me. Oh, sure.
Tell me when
That'd
to
be
switch.
Great. So I really want to thank the members of the report card committee, Nicole Bolduc, Lee Cronin, Ellen Gibson, and Louise King. They really helped, me. They were really willing to dig into the practices that have predominated in education over the course of the 20th century versus where we're going today. We looked at standards-based report cards from all over New England, and we discussed the advantages and disadvantages of each one. And they provided critical feedback on report card drafts as they were being created. So when we talk about education in the 20th century, that's really the age of preparing students for work in factories. So the focus of learning was on memorizing facts, where today a lot of information is available by computer on the internet. So it's not so much about being able to memorize facts as it's about being able to critique the source of information that you have, and making sure that students can access that information and use it. We want students engaged in creating meaning so that they are developing their own understanding. We're not just dumping knowledge into their heads. We want teachers to facilitate learning through projects and student engagement. So again, we're looking to increase that level of student engagement. We're looking for multiple opportunities for success. This shouldn't be an opportunity, or there shouldn't be a report card, for example, where a student gets graded and then it's the end. Students should have the opportunity to continue their learning and to eventually reach their learning outcomes that we want them to have. So the standards-based report card, there is a sample attached in the packet, I think on page 79 for the first quarter. We want to ensure that instruction and assessment are focused on the college and career-ready standards, so that students are achieving the learning outcomes that will help prepare them for life in the 21st century. And we know that when instruction is aligned to the standards and we implement best practices, then all of our students should achieve what we want them to achieve, and they should achieve at high levels. There were several things that we wanted in a report card. We wanted a section of, or to be able to tie our school values into the report card through a section that emphasized habits of mind, such as critical thinking, and being able to collaboratively engage and work with others. We also wanted to have a report card that would give us the option of assessing a student multiple times if they were struggling with the concepts. That way, not just learning could be personalized, but also the report card could be personalized to some extent. We wanted a way to capture each child's strengths and weaknesses that goes into much more detail than just the overall letter grade. And we wanted to make sure that the performance indicators, or the information that parents are getting on their report card, are aligned to the same information that the state is giving them on summative state assessments. Finally, we know that the entire state is shifting towards competencies. So we wanted a report card that wouldn't just serve us now, but would actually serve as a bridge and help us move forward as a school towards the competencies and not just the standards, because we want to continue growing and moving forward as a school. So we're hoping to have the report card out to teachers in May, so to introduce it and go beyond the report card committee. We want to introduce the report card to parents and the community in June, including a parent night, because we know that this will be a big shift for parents. It looks very different than the traditional report card. There will be some professional development around this for teachers in September, and we will need to have another parent night in November to make sure that everybody is comfortable. So for the conclusion, again, we're looking to have a link between the habits and behaviors that we know have a direct impact on academic achievement in the report card itself. We want to have the report card, or a report card that helps us shift towards the competencies. And we want to make sure that the report card is aligned to 21st century expectations and that all of our students are ready for life beyond the school. Questions?
So this, the same report card is going to be K through 8, or?
Yes, you have.
Individualized per grade?
You have the report card, well, the standards for each grade are different.
Sure.
So you have a copy of the ELA skills and concepts for every grade level, in math for K through Algebra 1, and an ELA for K through 8. And that's included in the packet. If you care to read them, they are there for you to
Okay.
read at your leisure.
I think you said these are college career readiness standards. I'm just checking. And then one thing I was just kind of curious about on the simple report card, the habits of mind, and then the performance. It's just they're different. They're different. It's a different code for it's still a 4-level.
Right.
But I just think I was just curious as to why we were going with different language, or it might be a little bit easier for parents if we're using like exceeds on both of them, just for continuity. You know what I mean?
Right. The issue is that this is actually aligned to the state curriculum frameworks,
Yeah.
where these are not.
Okay.
So I don't know what it would mean for a student to exceed and displays a positive attitude towards learning. But this is also a working draft,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean, we could have some of those discussions, but this is where we're at right now. Any other questions?
What's the next step on this? It's going to come back. What's I guess the timeline? I know you gave it briefly, but what's the very next thing we're going to see with this?
I think right now we're looking to release it for teachers to have their feedback on it,
Okay.
and then possibly see what that looks like for the board.
I think we also want to do some consultation with other schools who have already adopted a standards-based report card, because there are some logistical things that need to be figured out. One is the interface with MMS or Infinite Campus and how that will work. Another one is in a school that calculates a GPA and has a valedictorian and a salutatorian. How does that work with a standards-based report card? How will this affect sports eligibility? All of those pieces are things that we'll want to explore with other schools in the meantime. And we will have, our May 25th Professional Development Day has changed. The presenter that we had an agreement with has told us that he will not be here. The silver lining of that is we now have time as a staff to dig into the standards-based report card and really start to figure out what the questions are from them, and also what their suggestions and insights are. So still some things to do.
Well, I definitely like it better than the MMS ones we give out now. This is definitely not more to it than just a number.
I really like how it's like so broken down so you know exactly, you're right, is able to read appropriately, words fluently. Like that's very understandable as a parent. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it might be a little intimidating for parents. Some parents, I think, having so much, but
Well,
better give them too much than
one
not
of the
enough.
benefits is that there are fewer standards assessed at the end of the first quarter than at the end of the last, so both for teachers and for families, it is easing them into it. If we had to assess every standard in November, that would be rough, so.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? All right, thank you very much. About halfway through our packet.
We're moving now.
We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, I'll start on page 86 with the personnel report. I just have a nomination of Troy Ranfos for baseball coach for the spring.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 0.
Thank you. On page 88, you have the letter from NEASC that I think is the same one that Keith had a little bit earlier, just accepting us into the, as candidacy status. And as Jocelyn said, in the spring, we'll be meeting with George Edwards to go over what that whole process will look like. So that's exciting. It's the next step in the process.
Mr. Edwards was my principal in high school.
We're in Guilford?
No, in Pembroke.
Oh, Pembroke. I didn't realize he was over there.
Yep. Junior
Well,
year.
we'll have to talk to him about
Yeah.
that. On page 89 is the nomination list for professional staff for the 2018-2019 school year.
Would you like to do this usual and nominate them all in one?
You can make a motion to approve nomination as presented. I'll do them in two separate ones, one for the professional staff and one for the support staff. The professional staff is, again, on page 89.
I will make a motion to elect all of the nominations done by Dr. Gromsky for the professional staff.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
Thank you. On page 90, you'll see my nominations for anybody covered under the support staff collective bargaining agreement.
I'll make a motion to elect all of the professionals, paraprofessional staff as nominated by Dr. Gromsky.
Second that also.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
0.
All right, and two other things. We had emailed out, and I gave you a hard copy of Cafe Services, the contract for this year. You will see on the last page that the cost has changed slightly from this present year. I think Marjorie had gone over that at the last meeting, that the sales were not quite up to what they had anticipated. So if that's, I hope everybody has had a chance to look through this, and if it's acceptable, we've already passed it through the state to look at, so if it's acceptable, we can sign off on that.
Well, anybody have any comments or questions on this, or want to make a motion to accept it?
What was the last year's cost?
What's that?
What was the last year's cost on this?
I believe last year's cost was 30.
500,
Yeah, I was
something
going to
like
say
that?
34, 3,500.
Yeah. So it's gone up a bit, but it's still significantly less than the amount of money that we were transferring to food service before as well. That was getting up into 25,000, 35,000 at times.
Yeah, between 25 and 35,000 a year.
Yeah.
So what's this projected annual cost of 109,000?
Well, that's their total cost, right? That's their projected total cost, but if you look above, their total income that's how much they,
Where's the total income?
Right
about
up top of that.
fifth, sixth line down from the top of the page.
He's not looking at the same page.
Yeah, I'm not looking.
On the very last page,
It's the last.
very last page.
Second off, there we go.
So this is the difference of that. And this is the maximum, right? Because they will,
Just like last year, the maximum
Right.
was
Right.
3,500,
Yeah.
so it's gone up, but it's still a deal, and it's still better nutritional choices than we had before, so I think we should. They're coming to present to us the results of their survey?
Yes.
Do we know when?
As soon as I get the surveys back, probably May.
Would like to make a motion to accept the contract, or?
I will.
All right,
Motion to accept the contract as presented.
I will second that. Is there any discussion? No? Seeing none, all in favor of approving this contract? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, and just one other announcement. I got an email from Kelly Doby from Dale Transportation. Just said, "Hi Bob, I'm happy to announce that 2 Northwood drivers received Safe Driver Awards at the annual New Hampshire School Transportation Association dinner. One was Angela McLaughlin, earned a 5-year award, and Diana Orenberger, a 10-year award." So congratulations to those 2 bus drivers for doing such a nice job.
a 5-year award, a 10-year award?
Means they've been driving the bus with, I believe it's without accident or incident for that period of time.
No, and they're currently driving for us now.
They're currently driving for us.
Wonderful.
So, very nice job.
What were the names again?
Angela McLaughlin and Diana Orenberger.
Mrs. O, yeah, I know her. Just curious. She used to drive back.
Mrs. O.
Yeah, Mrs. O.
Oh, we love Mrs. O.
Yeah.
She loves O.
And she's driving very safely.
Right.
Congratulations to them.
So, well done. And
Yeah.
that's all I have.
All right, does anybody have any questions for our superintendent? Seeing none, quiet night tonight. All right,
I don't know if this is something about the bills, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
something.
that'll be a good time for that, I think.
So how much did we approve for up to fix the, or repair the instruments or replace the instruments? Was it like right around $2,000, wasn't it?
Oh, I think it was more than that.
Was it more than
Are you
that?
talking about the privately owned ones?
Yeah,
Or
the
the
ones that we approved, yeah.
1,500? I don't remember. We also repaired a lot of school-owned instruments.
Okay, so that's what these are,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Have we gotten the bill from the privately owned ones that we replaced yet? Do you know?
From the what?
The ones we replaced, the privately, I think there was 3 of them. that
I
were-
don't know off the top of my head.
I was a lot of, and is this going back? Because it's not even, this is all us, right? This is not even insurance-wise, this because they didn't cover it.
Everything gets submitted through this, we pay that, and then they reimburse back. So at the end of the day, what you're gonna see in that line that Marjorie created on the financials is we have a $1,000 deductible. So we're spending the money for all of the repairs and the replacement of instruments and those things. And then we in turn will get that back from the insurance company.
So school-owned property is being covered by insurance?
Yes, with a $1,000 deductible.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Good.
Sorry. Do you have anything else? Was that the only question you had?
That's all I had.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on then. Thank you. Next on our agenda is board goals. This is probably something we're going to keep on the agenda for our next 3 or 4 meetings and try to narrow these down. I know that starting on page 91, thank you, Spencer, for getting this in the packet for us. This is the kind of the working goals that we had for last year. What I suggest is maybe what we do tonight is go through all of just the high-level goals for each section. And a number of them, I believe, we're probably going to want to continue on with, and then some maybe we will take off the list. And let's maybe go through those, strike ones that maybe don't apply, add ones if people are passionate about it right now, and then we can also think about any other high-level areas we want to add. You know, this is kind of broken into curriculum goals, budget policy and strategic planning goals and stuff like that. We may want to add, you know, safety. You know, that might be something as a high-level goal, and maybe come up with some lines for that. But I think starting with going through line by line and just, let's say, is this something we want to continue, something we want to strike, and if we have something we want to add to it, let me know, we can write that down, and then we can come back with that as our next meeting maybe, and refine that a little further, and/or start coming up with some concrete ideas to implement, because a number of the concrete ideas, I think, will be we'll reuse those probably too, but like try to do all of goals at one time, starting at almost 9 o'clock, it's not a good idea. So we'll start off with the, unless anybody has a different way they want to do it, that's just kind of what I was thinking. I don't know if you guys get a chance to look through this. High-level curriculum goals, hire a full-time curriculum director and athletic director. I think we can strike that in a way, because that's a goal we've done.
Get the curriculum director, not the athletic director.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask, are you gonna be able to do this on the fly with us if we're,
I'm gonna do it in writing.
okay, great, thank you.
That'll be the quicker.
Establish full-day kindergarten, I think we can strike that at least. I mean, we may want to put things like continue, if we want to replace these, but, or not. Improve quality of education and testing scores. I think that's a goal we should always have.
Yep. I mean, we're actually still doing it. I
Yep.
mean, with the strategic plan and curriculum director, it's in the process, but
Increase focus on curriculum development and support. Again, I agree with that as well. I think that's going to be an important thing for us.
The only thing I think of is increase or maintain.
Yep.
Do we still need to increase? I don't know, but
Well, these goals are, okay, so these are goals for the board, for us, to kind of be investigating and pushing on, right, for the next year,
okay.
right? So they're not forever goals. This is our goals for us for this year, and at the end of the year, we'll come around and we'll look and see how well we did on it. And so it's kind of
Okay.
going to be our roadmap for what we think we should be doing this year. So yeah, I mean, we can do that. I just wanted to point that out. Like,
Sure.
I think curriculum development is still a priority in my book, rather
Yep.
than maintaining, but. Is there anything else anybody wants to add to the high-level curriculum goals at this time? We can always come back and add them next week or whatever too, but. All right, we'll move on to high-level budget policy and strategic planning goals. Improve accuracy of central bookkeeping.
did you skip one?
I'm just doing the high-level
High level, oh,
section,
gotcha,
and then we
sorry,
can,
yeah.
and then I figure we can do
Gotcha.
the concrete ones later on in the process, at a different meeting. Honestly, I think central bookkeeping has been pretty good. I haven't had any complaints. I haven't been hearing any complaints for a long time. I'm willing to,
Well, at least in the past month.
has it been before that?
Oh, complaining anyways.
I think you could, if you just change the word improve to monitor,
Sure,
I mean, I still think that's a reasonable goal to have.
sure, yep. I can definitely buy that. Allowed board members to drive board committees. I think we've been doing that. I think we continue to allow board members to drive committees. So it's high level, so this whole, I think we could add some things to this. So high level budget policy and strategic planning goals. I'd like to add something along the lines of, work more with policies. Getting policies brought back to the board and send and do that rather than looking at operational stuff. Have the board be more strategic, more policy driven, less operational. I'd like for when anybody has a question, they shouldn't have to wait to come talk to us at a board meeting. We should have a policy that says what they should do. Then they don't have to come and wait. It's there. And, so become more policy driven.
A little bit of that is kind of in the review
Yeah.
policies on a rolling basis. It's in the concrete ideas to implement,
Yeah, okay.
but
Yep. I'd like that to be a high-level goal, though, too. I mean,
Sure.
to
that
be,
makes sense.
to become more policy-driven and to implement our strategic plan, right? Finalize and implement our strategic plan is maybe another issue there.
So you want to add 2?
I would like to add 2, I guess, if it makes sense to you guys.
Yeah.
Does anybody know where the master plan is at with the town?
It's in the town report, I think, isn't it?
Is
Or
it?
is that, if it's not in the town report, I know it's at the town office, like you go to the clerk's office.
I
There's
just-
a master plan there.
One thing, I don't know if it's high level or just a concrete idea to implement, just to be able to, bounce it off their master plan as well and their goals, seeing that.
And maybe if this is where you're going with that, maybe like CIP-related stuff?
Yes.
Right, because this is high-level budget stuff, we should coordinate with the town and work with the CIP to drive our budget. And maybe that's probably worth noting in here as well, I think.
Wasn't Bob Strobel doing some effort to coordinate
Yep,
school and town?
yep,
and
yeah,
whatnot?
he's on, because he's the chair of the planning board.
So is that the CIP? Is
Yes.
that, okay.
Yep, he was the one that kind of got that, put the wheels in
Right,
motion for that.
okay.
Yeah, and I think we should continue on with that. We did make our CIP, we should maintain it, we should, follow it.
Yeah, it's not
definitely.
gonna die.
Yep, yep. All right, so we got the implement the strategic plan,
Become a
whatever.
policy.
We can adjust the wording later.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for high-level budget policy and strategic planning goals? I'm going to move down to high-level community communication goals. Improved communication among school board members. I think that's a perfectly good one to keep. Increase improved communication with staff, parents in the town. Absolutely, I like that one. Ensure that the board receives unfiltered information from the SAU. Is there anything else? Does these make sense to people? If you want to add new ones, or? Okay. Oh, we changed format here, didn't we?
Oh, these are superintendent goals on the second page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those
That was,
were your
it was all in
goals.
one
Yeah,
document that I
yep,
had.
no,
so
that's
yeah.
fine. All right, so these aren't, let's just read through these and see if there's anything that we might want to pull up into the board goals while we're here, since it's here. To provide leadership and technology use, work with facility. 5-year plan for facilities, it works. This is last year's goals for the superintendent, right? So we need to make new ones of these too. Yeah, I think this should be dependent on our board goals more than pulling things up, I think.
So, one
We
thing,
attack these later.
hold on, it's in there.
All right, so is there any, do we want to add I mean, maybe it's just too topical, but do we want to add a high-level, something about safety? I mean, is that something that we want to have as a board goal to look into the safety aspects of the school and improve student and staff safety?
I'd say yes, because we're already working.
We are starting to do that, yeah, and I can see this being again, this is a year of focus, and, maybe it's only a year that we're focusing on this, but it's probably something that we should always keep in mind. So yes, you guys want to add a high-level goal for that? For, improve, evaluate the safety and security of
The school, yeah.
the building. High-level goals of that, I think one of them we're already talking about is investigate the hiring of a school resource officer.
Is that a high-level goal, or is that a concrete
I
thing
think
to
you're right, that
implement?
could be more a concrete thing.
I think a high-level goal maybe would be able to have a continuous, because right now, we're in between, are we gonna use craze, or are we gonna use,
Right,
the other one, I forget what it is.
yeah,
So-
Alice,
Alice.
yeah.
So, I mean, that could be a high-level
Do
goal.
some, like,
Continuity of, staff with, security measures.
more like personal development type stuff, right, or just, or training of staff. Again, that could be almost a concrete goal or two, a concrete idea rather than a goal, but
Yeah, I
So
think
maybe the
overall
high level-
goal is Safety.
maybe the high levels thing is just,
Have we researched everything we need to research on?
oh, no, I'm sure we haven't, so that'd be a good one too. Maybe we start off with that. Research, look into, what the board can do to support building security and student and staff safety at the school. That encompasses a lot, right? We could, that's almost everything else, it's a concrete idea underneath there, like all of these things we're talking about. That'd be fine, we could just leave it at that. If someone has another point, we can add it later too. You guys have any ideas?
To help you proceed on these and organize these, would you like us to just put them in as the high-level goals that you've identified, and then leave space for concrete ideas underneath it, and then as you go into your next meetings, you can just develop the document?
I think that'd be great.
Okay, we can do that. We'll set that up.
Any other, like, high-level things people want to add for this year, which, I mean, we did kind of drop a few things from last year, which is fine, I think, but I think that's, it's probably plenty for our plate, as is, so. All right. We'll put that on our agenda again.
Yep.
For next meeting, and do more development, and we'll, maybe next 2-3 meetings, we can narrow these down. One thing we have done in the past, maybe just once, is that we did have the board got together with a special meeting. You know, we meet on the first and third Thursdays. Every once in a while, there's a month that has a fifth Thursday, right? We took one of those Thursdays and used it as a planning session for just the board members. And we didn't, it's a public meeting, anyone could come. We didn't ask any of the administration to come, and it was just kind of something for the five of us to get together and talk about a little less structured than the agenda, you know, we're talking about goals or what our plans for the year. So if you guys would be interested in that, that might be worth doing again. I thought it was useful. I think we should have done it more last year, actually. We only did the one time, I think. One time?
Once or twice.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was the first year, and then we did it once the second year. I can't remember, but I think we did it. It was like a workshop or something.
Yeah, it was almost like a work session rather than having minutes to approve and everything else. So if you guys want, we can look into a time for that. I can see when people are available. And that, we did use it for goals last year, but it was late. We do have 5 weeks in May, though. So we have a meeting on the 3rd and the 17th, and we have nothing on the 10th, the 24th, or the 31st. So I don't know, we could use that 5th, that might be, I don't know, it's 3 meetings from now, so it could be that we want to do it sooner, but I don't know, what, are people's Thursdays generally available?
Yeah.
Mine are.
Every Thursday.
Yep.
I mean, so maybe even later in April we could do it. I don't know what people are
Yeah,
thinking.
last week, vacation week is no good, but other than that, I'm fine.
Last week, okay. Maybe the 10th of May, we can get together and hopefully be far enough along in our goals that we can maybe finish them up on the 10th or something.
Sure.
Sure.
Except I might not be here. Never mind. Sorry, I just realized on my calendar. We'll tell you what, I'll throw out some ideas on, I'll send you an email or whatever, and look at your calendars, and we could probably even just figure it out at our next meeting, but something to keep in mind. It may be a useful thing for getting our goals done at least. Okay. Everybody happy to move on? All right. Next up is, we have the rest of the packet, which is all the governance policies. If you go online, you'll find all of these under Section B. Section B is all of the school board governance policies that have been put together over the years. Did everybody read all 10 pages of this?
I did.
You did?
Last year.
I didn't read it this year. I read it last year, but it's worth a review. I put it in early in the year last year as well, when Mr. Wells probably read it, just because it's, not so much because I'm looking for you guys to suggest changes, but you can if you want. I mean, these are our policies, we can definitely change them. But I do encourage you to look them over, because I was surprised when I read through them the first time that there was a lot of things that we weren't doing as a board that our policies say we should be doing. And it's always good to familiarize yourself, so I just wanted to put them in here with the hopes that you would see them and read them, or reread them, which I think I'm probably due for as well. But you can find them all online as well. So, and if you come across anything that you think is heinous or just a little bit different, or you want to change the way the policy is, we can definitely do that. That's what we're here for. So, bring forward, our policy committee is sitting right there. And Mr. Ruding loves it when we change policies. So take a look. That's all I'm asking for that.
Change them for the better.
What's that?
I said, as long as we change it
That's
for
right.
the better.
That's right. There was a desire in past years, and maybe there still is, to reduce the number of policies too. So we're looking at some of these things and like, this doesn't make sense, let's get rid of it. And the less policies we have, sometimes the better. If we have overlapping, we have things that just don't apply anymore. Doing some garbage collection on these things is a useful operation as well. Okay. On to committee reports. Do we have any committees meet in the last 2
Policy
weeks?
committee met today.
Good.
We reviewed 5 policies. 4 of those will be coming to the board at our next meeting. And one is going to the lawyer for some advice. I don't know if you want more information than that. Do you need to know which policies? It doesn't need to go into the minutes or anything.
Yeah, if
so
it's
yeah.
gonna come to us, it'll be in our packet, well, just have to read it, not too worried. I mean, are these all being changed for a particular reason? I guess it might be my only question.
Scott can answer that. We have a couple of.
Your purchase and bidding
Yes.
policies being changed just to align to the procurement procedures and the food service, minor changes, adding food service procurement, adding an ethics policy.
Same for the bidding one.
Yep, for those two. And then your school lunch program meal charges, it looks like we did a first reading, but we don't have a second reading recorded, so we just,
Okay,
so.
finish that up.
Weapons on school policy, weapons on school property, your last policy update to that was in 1998. I think things have changed. And while we have a policy that aligns to federal law, we want to refer out to the lawyer for an opinion about the collision between our state
State and
laws and
federal.
federal laws.
That a good weapon?
And then your physical examination policy was very specific about immunizations and records and schedules, and we know those change over time based on recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics. So we're looking to make that policy a little broader, so it doesn't have to be changed every time there's a change. Also, we had within that physical examination of students, we want to clarify the school policy on athletic.
Physical examination.
You know, just the clearance to play. It's not really a physical examination, it's a clearance to play, but it does fall under that policy. So we probably looking at a model for that because it's much more in date than the policy from way back when. And then this is a really good time if the board members are looking through and have a question about a policy or want us to review a policy to send an email. Because what will happen over the next month is this spring update will come out from the School Boards Association, and then all that discretionary work is sort of put aside while we address the priority legal updates in the spring and the fall. So it's a really good time. I'll make a recommendation if you have a hard time sleeping at night, it's a good idea to read some policies, it will help you sleep.
Start with the bees.
But if you have questions or.
Are there any particular policies you want to
Then
bring forward to
just send me
review?
an email, and we'll just throw them in the packet for next time, and then you'll see the policies come back. I'll just explain to the board members that we'll give you a key on what's optional, what's priority, what's recommended, what's required, so you can see, you know, maybe some that you might think about offloading, things like that.
On RFPs and purchase orders and stuff like that, we set it at $5,000 or more. Is that set by the board or is that set by legislation?
That is set by the board, and adjusted, I think, I know we had an adjustment over the last 5 years, we went from 3 to 5,000. I don't know if that was here. I would have to look.
Pretty sure Ms. Whitmore made a comment about, like, one of the other schools in the district has a higher level.
Yeah, we have different levels.
I would
in
like to
just about each
entertain
district.
going a little bit higher. It's just the cost of things are more now.
I think
And it's
probably
some things are simple
Yeah,
fixes.
I think probably the appropriate, you're at 5,000 right now.
Yeah.
I think probably the appropriate thing to do is wait for this policy to come in front of you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then just sort of direct us to do what you like.
Yep.
It's pretty minor for me to cross something out and write in a new, that way you get to look at it before you're making decisions.
Okay.
Yeah, so the
your
way
current-
the way policies work is generally they get brought to us for our first reading. You know, we make any suggestions or edits, it goes back to the policy committee. They take those edits, integrate them, get it back in the packet for the next meeting, then it comes back for the second reading. And at that point is when we adopt them or not. So when we read them over in the first reading, that's a good time to make suggestions.
So your last revision to GAD, which is your bidding requirement policy, was in 2009. So, and at that point, it's at $5,000. I think we had some other districts when I got here that were somewhere around 3, which was a little cumbersome. So, those will be in your packet next time.
Thanks. Any other committees meet?
I met with the curriculum.
Okay, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you level?
yes. Is that count?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
was like,
Take reports
I'm
for
not
everything.
prepared. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm learning. I sat and learned a lot and listened a lot. They talked about the standards-based report cards, so I already had like a intro into that and all of the anticipated possible things that could come up with that, what it means, and yeah.
And Amy, I can provide a little more information if you want.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
sure.
Amy had a fabulous orientation, and I can say it was probably one of our more technical conversations.
I have a lot of
because
notes
there's some
here.
exciting stuff happening. One of the exciting things is the schools are creeping closer and closer to being ready to develop and implement performance assessments together. Northwood and Nottingham are pretty close, and Stratford, by the end of the year, will have their structures in place. And that's exciting for me. I know it sounds sort of geeky, but it's exciting for me because what it means is if we're working together on our performance assessments and our competencies, that it's very exciting for the teachers. They don't know it. It sounds, but then you're sharing the load.
Right.
And we created a system through our PD where we have a private room that you guys are going to get passwords to. And that private room will contain all the curriculum, competency work, alignment, report cards, and developing performance assessments that can be accessed by the schools through the curriculum committee. And so there'll be an opportunity for increased collaboration, which means there'll be not all the load falling on one teaching staff in doing that. The other thing we talked about is Title IV-A competitive grant applications came out. And Northwood is in the process of writing their grant. We have to have it in next Friday by 4. And we're looking at using a vendor to help the school with a well-rounded education, with wellness and use of technology. So we have a proposal from Demonstrated Success that we're looking to get grant funded, which will really help with professional development. Stratford's doing something very similar, and Nottingham's doing something a little different, but everybody looks like is going to submit applications for those competitive grants next week. And so we're excited about that. Did we do anything else, Jocelyn? Yeah?
No, I think you did an excellent summary.
I did? Good, yeah. So we're moving along. It's nice that this, all three schools have done a lot of work with curriculum this year and made tremendous progress focusing on getting ready for competencies.
That's great.
So, that's all.
Thank you. Any other committees?
Strategic planning has been
Strategic
meeting
planning
virtually
virtually, yeah.
over the last couple of weeks
Right.
to finalize our strategic plan
Yep.
document. I think we are there.
I think next meeting there.
I was
So-
hoping we could extend an invitation officially to every member of the committee.
Yeah, I think, yep.
For as many of them as can be here to help
Right.
present that to the board.
So that will probably happen at our next meeting. We'll put that on our
April
agenda.
19th.
April 19th. That the strategic planning committee will bring their final thing for us for approval, or we can make edits or whatever too, but present the work they've done.
Nice.
That'd be great. The Co-Brown Education Committee has met a couple times. Actually, they met once tonight, and I wasn't able to make it because I was here. I know that they just approved the hiring of a new music teacher, and I believe they're looking for, they're doing interviews tonight for a new Spanish teacher as well. And there's a smattering of student issues that need to be addressed from time to time, but nothing too crazy. Guess the budget
Yeah, I
committee?
was going to say, Budget Committee has not met yet. It meets on the 11th, and I know Mrs. Dole had asked if we could put the dates that the Budget Committee will meet. So
Right.
I will, hopefully, we'll set those dates at that meeting, and I'll have them the next time we're here.
Okay. You can go ahead and email them to me and Dr. Rumsey when you find out, and
Okay.
we'll get them on our agendas.
Okay, will do. And then I have a question, being a new board member, on the Clubs Committee. I don't know exactly what my responsibilities, like how that meets, or if I get emailed, or how that exactly works.
So,
Let me take it. So Mrs. Dow, who just stepped out,
Wonderful.
handles it for professional staff, and then Colleen Gulick-Ryan handles it for the paraprofessional staff. And generally, they'll reach out to you to schedule a meeting to review the proposals.
Wonderful. So I just wait to hear from them about things.
Yep, and I'll
Wonderful.
remind them that you are the new contact person.
Wonderful, thank you.
I think it should all be on the website as well, the committees. I know I talked to Steve about that. I think you got them up there.
And there's a little more to that, because I was part of it with Barbie too. It's also your, like, you know, they're gonna come forward with their ideas, but it's also some of, you could reflect back on them, and, you know, say, like, you know, I'd like to see this type of committee because, you know, I mean, you're a school teacher, you see tons of different ones, maybe you could throw that at them too, so.
Sure.
Well, especially, I mean, your job is liaison to the board too, right?
Right,
So like if the
right.
board has some ideas for committees, clubs we'd like to see and stuff like that, we should be telling you. And you
Right,
know,
and I'll be
bring it to
bringing
them.
their ideas here, of course, sure. So,
You might find it useful too, to review the teacher contracts and the paraprofessional contracts, because they do have contracted amounts of money that they get for clubs and stuff like that, so I'm sure we
Okay.
can find you that. Not a huge deal, but I know Barbie was always on top of that when she was doing it. Any other committee reports? Old business. All right, so on to our parking lot items. These are on page 129. Newsletters ongoing. Resource officer, we had our discussion, so we can probably take that off.
Report card.
No, the resource officer. Yeah, report card too, though. I was gonna get to that. That's on resource officer.
All right.
Solar panels, we don't need to do anything with now. The tractor, it says 2018 budget discussion. It'd be 2019 budget discussion?
Yes, 19.
Yep. All right, just want to make sure about that.
We did get a quote, didn't we?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, well, we'll hear from you at some point then. No rush on that. All right. Our report card, we did. We can take that off. Competency presentation in May, competency.
Can I make a suggestion about that?
Yes. Since you're
I
on
think
point for that.
this would be a school, what did you say?
I thought you were on point for that, so yes.
No, I'm not on point for
Oh, you're
that.
not doing
Actually,
that.
this one shifts over to
Okay.
Kat. But given she's gonna have to have some parent, I think it might be good to delay that, because she's still gonna submit the report card.
Yep.
We still have to investigate this salutatorian valedictorian thing, which if we're not fully prepared, when we have our parent nights things, this is probably the most critical, is the helping parents understand what a standards-based or competency-based system is. And I think that it would be helpful if we delayed that a little bit and let's get through the standards-based report card discussion and meetings, and then come back in the summer for that.
I'm
Is that-
perfectly
is that
fine with that.
okay?
Yeah, does that make
Yeah,
sense to
all
everybody
right.
else?
So I'll just put that on in July.
Or put it summer.
We do August because we're going to a 3-day conference in July.
Oh, that would be good, right, there you go.
It would be
Okay.
valuable to wait for
Yep.
that.
Is August okay?
Yeah, I don't think there's a rush on it. Yeah. We'll change that to August. School safety and security is just ongoing. We addressed some of that tonight. Fresh Picks presentation, we'll hear from them. It's not May. It'll be soon thereafter, I would hope. Anyone want to add anything that's come up to the parking lot that we don't want to forget about?
Not add, but, Scott, you said you met with Homeland Security. What was it, that conversation you had with them?
Met with them yesterday.
Yeah, well, I totally forget what you talked about.
So there was, your EOPS were just done within the last 2 years,
Last year.
And given events, it might be good to review those with an outside set of eyes in a collaborative fashion to see if there's things we need to reconsider. Like with shifting from, a procedure that calls for a lockdown to a procedure that calls for, let's not lock down, let's go away, right? Which Allison craze. You're gonna have to take a good, hard look at your reunification procedures, right? In the event of an event. So what I put together with them yesterday was to come to the administrative retreat that I have for the SAU administrators in August, and take a full day and see if we can get police and fire from each town for everybody to review their plan, and also do some tabletop exercises, to see if we can find any holes in the plan. And then have those go back to the joint loss committees or whatever the individual districts cause their teams for adjustments. And at the same time, Mr. Heichel and the new gentleman, who I can't remember his name right now, have offered to go with me after that and walk through each building with the administrators and look for any, when you work in a building every single day, sometimes you don't see what somebody can see when they walk in and walk through, and then make some security recommendations for that.
When would that be?
That, I've got the scheduling email out. I mean, it'll be in August at admin
Okay.
retreat. I'm just trying, it just takes a while to schedule it with people's vacation times. It's sort of like herding cats through email.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
So
I was just
that
wondering because I
email
wanted to know
went
what
out.
to put on the agenda. If this is
Yeah,
something
that
that's
email
sooner.
went out today or yesterday.
Today.
And so once we get the administrators committed to when the admin retreat will be, then I've already had a conversation with Chief Drolet, and we'll see if we can get fire there. We're also, we'll reach out to, is it Mr. Young in town, your emergency? Is that his name?
Yep.
Yes. And then also, there is a school resource officer out of Newmarket that lives in Nottingham that has a lot of training in school safety. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, so the Nottingham principal is going to reach out to him and see if we can come up with a nice collaborative group to spend the day and do that work, and hopefully come back with something that the boards feel comfortable with, and adjust accordingly.
All right.
Cool. Thank you.
Anything else in the parking lot that needs discussion? All right, moving on to the timeline. Got about 6 things here in April, and I've checked off, I think we've done pretty much all of them. The teacher evaluation summaries, renomination of professional staff, renomination of head custodian. I think we should change that to non-CBA staff. We don't have a bookkeeper after all. It's more than just the head custodian, although that might be further down. Professional staff's on here twice too, for some reason. Oh, maybe just to point out that it's April 15th deadline. Approved spring fundraisers we've done, set board goals we're working on. And the only other thing is the end of year field trips, special events planned, but I know those are in progress.
Yep, I can have a list for you next meeting.
Okay, great.
Of working list.
All right. Anything anybody wants to add or change on here? On here, stuff we should be doing in April? Okay, it's good for me. Future agenda items, our next meeting is in 2 weeks on April 19th. I'm going to add to the agenda, maintain on the agenda, our discussion for goals and our safety discussions, and maybe even a little more detailed information on the school resource officer, because we're going to meet with the selectmen, hopefully, and get budget information. We should have a pretty much finalized list of what we're going to do on the surplus, with the surplus money.
Yep.
Our non-CBA contracts, hopefully, will at least be in there for discussion, if not approval, right then. And a strategic planning presentation, if possible. Are the things I have listed for our next. Oh, I'd like to add a retro to it at the end, if we could. And this is, let's call it retro. And this is just, I want to put that on, there's a time for the board members to talk about, hey, how the last few meetings go? What can we do better? So, things like that, So I like to do that every once in a while, like every month or so.
You mentioned retro, and we never finished it, and now that Barbie's gone, and I know Brian wanted to be a part of it.
The bus.
The bus thing. We need to visit that before you leave,
The timeline.
the timeline on all that stuff.
Got a whole binder if anybody wants it.
All right, you two want to meet with?
Yeah,
with
we'll
him
figure
and
out a time.
Figure that
Sure.
out.
Okay.
Any other agenda items we want for next week, other than what I just listed? gonna be a busy one too, for most of things. All right, let me know 7 days before if you want to add something. Okay, so our next meeting is, we actually have a meeting, an SAU meeting before that, on April 16th, which is a Monday, at 6:15. Then our April 19th regular board meeting, May 3rd regular board meeting, and then we have a joint board meeting with Co-Brown on May 16th. And there's a couple more meetings later, but we'll get to those. And I will try to send out an email, try to pick a date for maybe when we can get together to do just kind of a workshop for our goals.
Yeah, I was looking, if it's gonna be April, it'd be next Thursday, or we're out. Or did I look at that wrong?
No, I think you're right. It's either next Thursday or we do it in May.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll probably, in May, we can't do it for the first 3 weeks. It'll be the 4th week of May. So yeah, it might be next week that we might have to do it. I don't know what people's schedules are, but we try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll send an email if you can make it. Great. If you can't, just let me know and we'll maybe not do it. We can just do it in regular board meetings too.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
is there any closing public comment? I surprise you.
Oh.
You're ready to go. Like, whoa.
I love that she wants to make the school pretty. That's so awesome. I didn't know Earth Day is coming up. I know a lot of the kids were thinking about doing activities with their book buddies. I don't know if there's a way we could like set aside some money for maybe some flowers and wood chips. Maybe the kids could do something. If not, I'll help you. I'll do it with you. I love the garden.
Maybe we can look for donations too and,
You know?
and volunteers for things.
Right.
Like, that'd be,
And when's this?
Earth Day?
Yeah.
It's
Oh, is it-
22nd.
It used to be 420, they changed it.
Yeah. I know
That's a
they've been
different day.
talking about doing something with book buddies for Earth Day.
Well, it's Earth Day was always 420, and then they
Right.
decided, we can't do that
I
anymore.
know
Let's do that.
some talked about picking up trash out in the parking lot in the playground, but I mean, maybe Home Depot would donate
22nd,
something,
yeah.
or Everett Garden.
Is it?
22nd.
22nd.
It's on Sunday.
It's on Sunday.
Well, they'll probably observe it on a different day.
20th.
It would be nice, it would be nice.
yes. Any other members of the public wish to speak at this time? Any board members like to take this opportunity to address the board?
I would.
Right.
I have something for you. As you know, Joe has a new job in Vermont, so I am sending you my resignation from the board effective April 19th will be my last meeting.
meeting, okay.
We have found a house. We are closing at the end of this month and moving in early May. So that is my news.
All right, well, I'm sad to
Luck.
see you go. Thank you for all the time you've given to us. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. And I'm glad you guys are landing on your feet well as well. That's,
It's been an educational experience.
all right, so we're going to have some decisions to make soon here. Okay. We'll say about that.
We'll say goodbye on the 19th.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Wanted to give you a little advance
Yeah,
notice.
no, thank you.
So,
Appreciate
yeah.
that.
Pizza and cake.
Well, it's a good time for getting this. Good time for getting
With
this
veggie
strategic plan
That's
done.
kind of
You're-
why I
you're-
wanted to
you're a
hurry
big-
up
big
and
part of that, yeah.
crack the whip on Joe. So, yeah, I'd love to be able to end on that note. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
lovely. So,
I think that was a good.
Your
thing. I
house
think-
sold super fast.
Oh,
you
good.
think?
Yeah.
It took longer than I thought it would,
Really?
but yeah.
Being your neighbor, do you have the wire
I'm sorry.
on your house? Is that what you're saying? Your house is sold?
We had an offer this week
Oh,
and we accepted.
congratulations.
So, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
Congratulations.
So you'll have new neighbors.
And on the other side too, actually.
Oh, I saw that one up for sale, actually, yeah.
We do need a non-public session at the end, or do we cover everything?
We do not. We covered everything.
Great.
And I don't mean to rush the process, but would you like me to post a board vacancy, or would you like to just discuss it at the next meeting?
I think we should discuss it and figure out. I mean,
Because we can appoint, yes.
Well,
And I
think-
assume that I should probably not be a part of that process. Should that happen after I'm gone? I don't even know how that,
think it has
Well,
to work
well,
that
it
way.
would, because there's not an opening until you.
right, but you can certainly discuss it amongst yourselves.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think the board does have the option to leave the position open as well, or, I don't know if we can call an election, is that an option as well? I've never seen it, but
Typically, what happens is you would post an opening, take any letters of interest, and then it's up to the board to appoint.
Right, that's
somebody.
what that was my understanding as well. So, yeah, well, let's put that on the agenda for
Okay.
next week, the next meeting? That
Next
makes sense?
meeting?
Yeah.
Nominate
A former board
I
member,
don't mean
perhaps?
to lie.
You can have it. It's all yours.
So you're, just to give you a little clarification,
Yeah.
on page 110 of your packet is your process for
Policy.
unexpired term fulfillment
Oh,
by policy.
I'm so glad I put these in here.
I was like, wait a minute, that's.
didn't we just read that?
By appointment, yeah. You can tell I didn't read it before. Policy BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment.
Disappointed you didn't just recite that off the top.
I know, right?
You'd think you would have it.
You just did recite it, Dr. Godomsky.
Basically,
You just don't know that you did.
Didn't know the policy.
Right. All right, this time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?